Have you ever caught yourself wondering, am I imagining this? Not because she smiled, not because she laughed at your joke, but because there are these tiny moments that don't seem to fit the story you've been telling yourself. She's younger, you're older. Your mind immediately fills in the blanks before reality even gets a chance. She's just being polite. She couldn't possibly see me that way. And without realizing it, you quietly close a door she may never have even had the chance to knock on. If this conversation speaks to something you've been carrying silently, stay with me until the end. And if you've ever appreciated honest conversations that don't play games with your emotions, consider subscribing. Not because I want another number, but because some conversations arrive exactly when we need them. Now let me tell you something I've noticed after years of listening to people's stories. The biggest mistake men make isn't assuming every woman likes them, it's assuming that no younger woman ever could. Those are two completely different traps. One creates arrogance, the other creates blindness. And strangely enough, blindness is far more common. I've sat across from men who could negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, who had built businesses, raised families, survived heartbreak, buried parents, rebuilt themselves after failure. Yet the moment a younger woman looked at them with genuine warmth, they became uncertain boys again. Not because they lacked confidence, because they believed there was an invisible rule everyone else understood except them. That attraction must always move in one direction, that youth only seeks youth, that experience has an expiration date. But human beings rarely fall for rules. They respond to how someone makes them feel. That's the part most people never talk about. Attraction is rarely logical. It begins long before either person admits it, even to themselves. Sometimes a woman notices how calm you remain when everyone else is trying to impress. Sometimes she notices how you listen without interrupting. Sometimes she notices the way people naturally respect you without you demanding attention. Those observations don't create instant attraction, but they plant curiosity. And curiosity is far more powerful than most men realize. Because attraction almost never starts with certainty. It starts with a question. Who is he? Why do I feel comfortable around him? Why do I keep thinking about that conversation? Notice something important. None of those questions begin with appearance. That's because emotional safety often arrives before romantic interest has a name, especially when there's an age gap. A younger woman may question her own feelings before you ever question yours. She may wonder whether she's reading too much into your conversations, whether she's simply admiring you, whether it's respect, whether it's comfort, or whether something deeper is quietly growing underneath everything she says. People imagine attraction arrives like lightning. In reality, it's usually more like dawn. The light changes so slowly that nobody notices until suddenly the whole room looks different. And here's where so many men accidentally sabotage themselves. The moment they sense even a possibility, they rush to define it. They start performing, trying harder, talking louder, sending longer messages, showing achievements nobody asked about. It's understandable. When we're afraid of losing something, we often grip it too tightly. But emotional connection doesn't survive pressure very well. Think about the last person who made you feel completely understood. Was it because they constantly tried to impress you? Probably not. It was because around them, you didn't feel judged. You didn't feel rushed. You didn't feel like you had to become someone else just to deserve their attention. That's exactly how genuine attraction often begins. Not through fireworks, through relief. A quiet feeling of finally being able to lower your guard. And that becomes even more meaningful when two people come from different generations, because age changes experiences. It doesn't erase emotional needs. A younger woman doesn't stop wanting kindness because she's younger. She doesn't stop appreciating emotional steadiness. She doesn't suddenly become immune to authenticity. If anything, in a world full of noise, emotional consistency becomes even more noticeable. Which brings us to something fascinating. The first real sign of attraction is almost never flirting. It's much quieter than that. In fact, most men miss it completely because they're watching for the wrong signals. And once you understand why, you'll never look at those quiet moments the same way again. The first unspoken sign isn't found in what she says. It's found in what she doesn't have to say. Let me explain. There is a quiet shift that happens when someone begins to feel emotionally drawn to another person. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. Most of the time, it slips into ordinary conversations so naturally that both people overlook it. She starts letting you see pieces of herself that serve no purpose. Not impressive stories, not carefully polished versions of her life, just little fragments. She tells you about the coffee shop she always visits after a difficult day. She admits she gets nervous before presentations, even though nobody at work would ever guess. She laughs about something embarrassing that happened years ago. None of those details are necessary. They're invitations. Psychologically, this matters because people don't reveal their inner world to everyone. We naturally protect it. We test people first. When a woman feels emotionally safe around you, her conversations slowly become less about information and more about connection. And here's what many older men accidentally do. They mistake vulnerability for friendship. Or they become so convinced she's just comfortable that they ignore the emotional weight behind those moments. Now, let's be careful here. Being open with you does not automatically mean romantic attraction. People can absolutely feel safe without wanting a relationship, that's true. But when emotional openness begins to appear alongside several other quiet behaviors, that's when the picture becomes much more interesting. Think about someone you've trusted deeply. Didn't you naturally stop editing yourself quite so much? Didn't conversations begin to wander into places you never planned? That isn't coincidence. That's how emotional closeness grows. I've watched this happen countless times. A man walks into my office months after a relationship begins. He'll tell me, "I never saw it coming." Then he starts describing how it all started, and almost every time, the signs were there. She remembered tiny things he mentioned once. She looked for reasons to continue conversations that had already ended. She shared parts of herself she rarely discussed with anyone else. He noticed every single one of those moments. He just didn't believe they meant anything. Because somewhere deep inside, he'd already decided the age difference made attraction impossible. Do you see how powerful our beliefs become? They don't just influence what we think, they influence what we're able to notice. It's like standing outside during sunrise while wearing sunglasses so dark that you keep insisting it's still night. Reality hasn't disappeared, your perception has changed. Now here's the second unspoken sign. She becomes genuinely curious about your life, not your accomplishments. There's a difference. Anyone can ask, "What do you do?" That's conversation. But attraction asks different questions. What were you like when you were younger? What made you choose that path? What did you learn from that experience? Notice where those questions go, not toward your resume, toward your story, toward the person underneath everything you've achieved. A younger woman who feels emotionally drawn toward an older man often becomes fascinated by his experiences, not because she wants a history lesson, but because she's trying to understand the person those experiences created. She's looking for patterns, for values, for emotional depth. She wants context, not credentials. And if you've ever had someone lean in, not physically but emotionally, you know exactly what I mean. You finish answering one question, only to realize she's already asking another. Not because she's interviewing you, because your answers create even more curiosity. Curiosity is one of attraction's quietest languages. People become students of those who matter to them, not intentionally, naturally. Have you ever noticed how easily you remember small details about someone you're interested in? The name of their childhood dog, their favorite song, the way they take their coffee. Nobody forces you to remember those things. Your attention simply moves toward them. The same happens in reverse. If she brings up something you casually mentioned weeks ago, something even you forgot saying, pause before dismissing it. Memory follows emotional investment far more often than we realize. Again, this doesn't stand alone as proof. One sign never tells the whole story, but human behavior is like a puzzle. Each small piece seems ordinary by itself. Only when several pieces begin fitting together does the image become impossible to ignore. And there's another piece, one that's surprisingly easy to miss because it often hides behind simple politeness. Except, it isn't politeness at all. It's something much deeper, and once you recognize it, you'll begin seeing it in conversations you once thought were completely ordinary. The third unspoken sign is something most men completely overlook because it doesn't look romantic. It looks effortless. She begins creating reasons for the conversation to continue. Not dramatic reasons, not obvious ones, just small openings that keep the connection alive. You've answered her question, yet she asks another. The conversation naturally reaches its end, but somehow it doesn't end. She sends you something that reminded her of what you talked about 3 days ago. A song, an article, a funny photo, a simple, "This made me think of you." To someone watching from the outside, these moments seem ordinary, but psychologically, they're meaningful. People protect their time. We all do. Every message, every phone call, every extra 5 minutes of conversation is a choice. When someone consistently chooses to keep you in their mental space, it tells you something important. Not everything, but something. And here's where many older men get stuck. They tell themselves, she's probably just nice. Maybe, she could be. Kindness exists, friendly people exist. That's why it's important not to jump to conclusions based on one behavior. But ask yourself something. Is she creating these moments with everyone? Or do they seem to happen more naturally with you? There's a difference. I've seen men dismiss months of growing emotional connection because they were waiting for an unmistakable declaration. Real life rarely works that way. Most attraction develops quietly, especially when there's an age gap. Because she may be asking herself questions too. Would he even be interested? Will people judge us? Am I reading this wrong? Just as you carry doubts, she may carry her own. That uncertainty often makes people move carefully instead of dramatically. Now let me tell you about someone I'll call Daniel. He was in his early 50s, confident at work, calm under pressure. The kind of man people naturally trusted. There was a woman in her early 30s who worked in the same organization. Over nearly a year, she found reasons to stop by his office. Sometimes it was a genuine question. Sometimes she already knew the answer. Sometimes she'd simply mention a podcast she thought he'd enjoy. Daniel never thought much of it. He assumed she appreciated his experience, nothing more. Months later, after she had moved to another company, they met for coffee. That's when she admitted something that surprised him. "I kept hoping you'd ask if I wanted to continue our conversations outside work." He stared at her, completely speechless. Not because he wasn't interested, because he'd convinced himself there was no possibility she could be. Do you know what saddened him most? It wasn't that he almost missed the opportunity. It was realizing how many assumptions he'd made without ever testing whether they were true. Sometimes our biggest obstacle isn't rejection, it's self-rejection. We quietly eliminate ourselves before life has the chance to answer. Now, let's talk about the fourth sign. She becomes noticeably more present when you're around. Presence is different from attention. Attention can be polite. Presence is emotional. Have you ever spoken to someone who was technically listening but mentally somewhere else? You can feel it immediately. Their eyes drift. Their responses arrive half a second too late. They're waiting for the conversation to end. Now compare that with someone who seems completely there. They notice small changes in your mood. They ask follow-up questions without forcing them. They laugh naturally instead of politely. When you speak, you get the feeling your words actually land somewhere. That's presence, and attraction often deepens it. Not because she's trying to impress you, but because emotional interest naturally sharpens attention. Your stories become more memorable. Your opinions become more interesting. Even silence feels less uncomfortable. In psychology, we sometimes talk about emotional attunement, the quiet process of becoming more aware of another person's thoughts, feelings, and reactions. When someone matters to us, we instinctively pay closer attention. We notice changes in their voice. We recognize when they're tired, distracted, or unusually quiet. Not because we have a special talent, because our minds naturally prioritize what feels emotionally important. If you find that she seems unusually engaged in your conversations, not only hearing your words but responding to the feelings behind them, that can be another meaningful piece of the puzzle. Still, the most revealing sign isn't found in conversation at all. It appears in the moments when neither of you is speaking. Those silent seconds often reveal more than 100 carefully chosen words ever could. Silence has a strange way of telling the truth. Words can be rehearsed, Smiles can be polite. Even confidence can be performed. But silence. Silence is where people stop managing every little impression they make. And that's where the fifth unspoken sign begins to appear. She doesn't rush to escape the quiet. Think about that for a moment. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence around someone they don't feel connected to. They instinctively reach for their phone. They look around the room. They fill the space with random conversation, anything to avoid those empty seconds. But when emotional comfort begins to grow, something different happens. The silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling peaceful. You finish talking. Neither of you says anything for a few moments, yet nobody seems anxious. Nobody feels the need to rescue the conversation. Instead, she stays present. She looks out the window. She smiles to herself. She simply enjoys sharing the same space. That kind of comfort cannot be forced. It's built slowly. And when there's an age gap, it often matters more than flirtation itself, because before attraction becomes visible, trust usually becomes invisible. I've noticed that many men underestimate how valuable emotional calm really is. They think they need to entertain, to impress, to constantly create excitement. But emotional safety has its own quiet magnetism, especially in a world where everyone seems to be competing for attention. Imagine spending all day surrounded by noise, notifications, deadlines, opinions, pressure. Then meeting someone whose presence actually slows your heartbeat instead of speeding it up. Someone who doesn't make you feel like you're being evaluated every second. That feeling is rare, and rarity creates value. Now, this doesn't mean every comfortable silence is romantic. Healthy friendships contain those moments too. But when that comfort exists alongside curiosity, emotional openness, remembered details, and consistent effort to stay connected, you're no longer looking at isolated behaviors, you're seeing a pattern. And human relationships are built on patterns, not isolated moments. The sixth sign is even more subtle. She begins inviting you into her future in very small ways. Not necessarily as a romantic partner, not yet, but as someone she naturally pictures being there. Listen carefully to the language. You'd probably like this restaurant. We should check that place out someday. I wonder what you'd think about this. I'm planning to visit that city later this year. At first glance, those sentences seem ordinary, but psychologically they're interesting because they include you in experiences that haven't happened yet. Our minds don't casually place people into imagined futures. We do it with those who have become emotionally significant. Again, this doesn't guarantee romantic attraction. People also imagine future experiences with friends and family. Context matters. Patterns matter. But notice whether these moments happen repeatedly, whether your presence slowly becomes part of how she imagines enjoyable experiences. I've spoken with women who later admitted they didn't even realize they were doing this. One smiled as she told me, "I kept saying we should go there," before I'd even admitted to myself why I wanted him there. That sentence stayed with me, because attraction often reveals itself indirectly before we're emotionally ready to say it aloud. The conscious mind likes certainty. The emotional mind usually arrives first. There's another reason this happens more often than people think. An older man who has developed emotional steadiness can represent something deeply reassuring. Not perfection, no one is perfect, but steadiness, predictability, the feeling that conversations don't have to become emotional battlefields. For many people, regardless of age, that's incredibly attractive. Not because life becomes easier, because it becomes more peaceful. And peace is something people quietly crave. The irony is that many men overlook this quality in themselves. They're too busy comparing themselves to younger men, more energy, more fashion, more social media presence. Meanwhile, they're ignoring qualities that can't be bought or copied overnight. Patience, perspective, emotional restraint, the ability to remain calm without becoming distant. Those qualities don't guarantee attraction, nothing does, but they often become the foundation upon which attraction quietly grows. And there's one final sign, perhaps the most revealing of them all. Ironically, it has almost nothing to do with how she behaves. It has everything to do with how she makes you feel whenever she's around. The seventh and final unspoken sign is the one most people never think to look for. Because it doesn't begin with her. It begins with the version of yourself that quietly appears when she's around. Let me explain. Have you ever met someone who didn't make you feel like you had to perform? Someone who never demanded that you become louder, cooler, younger, or someone you're simply not? You leave the conversation, and instead of replaying everything you said, searching for mistakes, you notice something unusual. You feel lighter. Not because she praised you, because she accepted the person who was already there. That emotional shift matters more than most people realize. When attraction grows in a healthy direction, it often creates emotional permission. Permission to stop pretending, permission to stop proving, permission to simply exist. And that feeling works both ways. If she's genuinely attracted to you, she may begin relaxing into your presence in exactly the same way. She laughs a little more freely. She stops correcting every sentence before she speaks. She becomes less concerned with saying the perfect thing. That's not carelessness, that's comfort. Psychologically, we become less guarded around people who make us feel emotionally secure. Our nervous system recognizes safety long before our mind creates an explanation for it. You can watch it happen. At first, conversations are careful. Both people measure every word. They leave pauses just a little too long. They wonder how they're being perceived. Then, slowly, those invisible walls begin to come down. She interrupts herself because she's laughing. You both lose track of time. One conversation turns into another without either of you noticing. You aren't counting minutes anymore. You're sharing moments. And that's an important distinction. People who are only being polite usually become more aware of time. People who are emotionally invested often become less aware of it. Think back to a conversation you've never forgotten. What made it memorable? Was it because someone said something extraordinary? Probably not. It was probably because, for a little while, you felt completely seen. That's what meaningful connection feels like. Not excitement every second. Recognition. There's something else I've learned over the years. Many men believe attraction is about finding the perfect words, the perfect message, the perfect moment. But the healthiest relationships I've seen rarely began with perfect moments. They began with honest ones. A conversation that lasted longer than expected. A shared laugh that neither person planned. A silence that felt surprisingly comfortable. A goodbye that lingered just a second longer than usual. Those moments don't demand attention. They quietly earn it. Now, I want to say something that may challenge you. If you're constantly searching for signs because you're desperate for certainty, you may miss the relationship that's naturally unfolding in front of you. Why? Because anxiety changes the way you observe people. Instead of experiencing the conversation, you're analyzing it. Instead of listening, you're collecting evidence. Instead of enjoying the moment, you're trying to predict the future. That's exhausting, not only for you, but for the connection itself. Healthy attraction doesn't grow under constant interrogation. It grows through curiosity, through patience, through allowing another person to reveal themselves at their own pace. And yes, sometimes you'll misunderstand the signs. Sometimes kindness is simply kindness. Sometimes admiration never becomes romance. That's part of being human. It isn't failure. It isn't something to feel embarrassed about. Real emotional maturity isn't believing every smile means attraction. It's also not believing every age gap makes attraction impossible. It's having the courage to stay open to reality instead of letting fear write the ending before the story has even begun. Because fear has a habit of whispering one sentence over and over again. Don't risk it. But life has a different question. What if your assumptions are wrong? That question has changed far more lives than certainty ever has. And once you begin seeing attraction through that lens, something remarkable starts to happen. You stop chasing validation, and you start recognizing genuine connection when it quietly appears. Before we end, I want to leave you with one thought. Not about women, not about age gaps, about you. Because after everything we've talked about, it's easy to become focused on one question. Does she like me? But I've learned that this is rarely the question that changes someone's life. The better question is, who am I becoming while I wait for the answer? There's something deeply attractive about a man who isn't trying to convince the world that he's enough. Not because he's perfect, Not because he never doubts himself, because he has stopped allowing those doubts to make every decision for him. You can feel the difference almost immediately. One man enters every interaction hoping not to be rejected. Another enters simply hoping to know the other person honestly. The first carries tension. The second carries curiosity. Curiosity changes everything. It helps you notice people instead of projecting your fears onto them. It allows you to appreciate a conversation without turning it into a prediction. It gives attraction room to breathe. If you've watched this far, I don't think you're looking for tricks. I don't think you're interested in pretending to be someone you're not. I think you're trying to understand something much quieter, how genuine connection actually begins. And the truth is, it almost never begins with confidence. It begins with presence, with listening, with paying attention, with respecting another person's pace as much as your own. Remember the 7 quiet signs we've explored, not as a checklist, not as proof, but as gentle reminders to observe the whole picture instead of one isolated moment. A woman who shares more of herself than she has to. A woman who becomes curious about the person behind your experiences. A woman who naturally keeps conversations alive. A woman who is fully present when you're together. A woman who feels comfortable sharing silence. A woman who casually includes you in thoughts about tomorrow. And finally, a connection that allows both of you to become more relaxed, more authentic, and more yourselves. None of these signs guarantee love. People are wonderfully complex. Every relationship has its own rhythm. Every individual has their own way of expressing interest. That's why emotional wisdom is so much more valuable than certainty. Wisdom says, pay attention. It doesn't say, assume. Wisdom says, stay open. It doesn't say, force the outcome. I've met couples with 20 years between them who built relationships filled with respect, laughter, and deep companionship. I've also met couples the same age who couldn't truly see one another despite sharing everything else. The difference was never the number. It was the quality of the connection they created together. Age may shape your experiences, it may influence your perspectives, but it doesn't decide whether two people feel emotionally understood. Only they can discover that. So the next time you find yourself wondering whether you're imagining those quiet moments, don't rush to write a happy ending, but don't rush to write a tragic one either. Stay curious. Watch how the story unfolds. Let actions reveal themselves over time. And perhaps most importantly, don't disqualify yourself before life has had the chance to answer. Because sometimes, the greatest distance between two people isn't measured in years. It's measured in the assumptions they never challenged. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this conversation gave words to something you've been feeling but couldn't quite explain, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. These conversations become richer when people share their experiences with honesty and respect. Take care of yourself, and remember, the strongest connections rarely begin with grand declarations. More often, they begin with two people who quietly make each other feel at home.